now that we have understood the syntax for making entries to a table, let's try to implement it. So this is the same example that we have taken for understanding other concepts. So we have created a table called books, and we have specified some of the columns. Like book ID is one column, title is the other column, author, language, and year published. Let's try to reduce the number of columns that we want to work with. So let's delete year published, and let's delete the year published. So we know that we can make use of select statement to check the values that are inside the table. So let's try to print the values inside the table. All right. So we have used select star, which will print all the columns from the table books. Let's try to run it. Right now we can see that nothing is being printed from this table books. This is because we do not have any entries inside the table books so far. So let's try to enter some values inside this table. So let's try to enter some values. So we know that we can make use of insert, and then we need to specify into the name of the table books, and then we need to specify the columns that we want to add values for. So we will specify the name of the column. So the first column that we want to work with is title, then author, and then language. And then we specify the values. So the values, it needs to be in the same order in which we have specified the columns. So we need to add values for title, author, and then language. So let's say we are trying to enter a new value. So let's try to enter the title, Gitanjali, author, Rabindra Nath Tagore, and then the language is Bengali. All right, so we're trying to enter title Gitanjali, author Rabindranath Tagore. Just a second, Rabindranath. So we're trying to enter the title Gitanjali, author Rabindranath Tagore, and the language as Bengali. So we have entered the values in the same order in which we have specified the columns. Let's try to run this. So since we have made use of select, it will try to print the values inside this particular table books. Let's try to add semicolon after this query. It is very important for us to use semicolon whenever we are writing a query. So we will add semicolon, and then let's try to run this. So we can see that this particular statement has inserted the values Gitanjali, Rabindranath Tagore, and Bengali in this table. By making use of insert statement, we can enter the values inside the table. So I will repeat the syntax again. So we will make use of insert statement followed by into, and then name of the books. And after name of the books, we will specify the columns that we want to work. So let's try to delete the column language, and also try to delete the value for the language inside the statement. So let's see what will happen. Let's try to run it. All right, so we can see that when we are not specifying the value for the language, this particular statement is entering a default value as null for that particular column. So if we are not specifying the value for that column, the SQL takes in null as the default value. Okay, now let's try to understand one more way of entering values inside the table. So right now we are trying to add values for only two columns. So let's just say, like before, we want to add values for title, author, and language. We want to add value for title, author, and language as well. So instead of mentioning the columns here itself explicitly, we can even skip on that value. So if we want to specify the values and enter values for every column in the table, we can skip on mentioning the columns. But if we want to enter values for only specific columns, then is when we make use of columns after books. But right now we want to enter value for every column inside the table. So we can skip on mentioning the columns. So we will make use of insert into books and then the values. So right now we have mentioned the values for title, author, and language, but we also want to specify the book IDs. So initially when we were specifying the columns, the book value was auto incremented. So initially it has the value for 0. So it was auto incremented and the value for book ID was set to 1. But when we are working with insert into books and we are not mentioning the columns, we have to put in the value for every column for that table. So we will also enter value for book ID. Let's try to run this. Yeah. So we can see that we are having book ID as 1, the name as Gitanjali, Rabindranath Tagore as the author, and Bengali as the language. All right. Okay, let's try to make one more entry. So what we will do is we will make use of insert into books, then values, and then we will specify the book ID, name of the book, let's say Great Expectations, written by Charles Dickens, and the language is English. Let's try to run it. Okay, so why this happened was because we have semicolon after our query. Let's try to run it. All right. So we can see that we are able to make 2 entries inside this particular table. So now we have understood 2 ways of making entries into a table by specifying the column, or if you want to work with every column in a table, we can skip on mentioning the columns and we can straight away mention the values that you want to enter. Okay, one thing that we can notice over here is that for both these statements, we are making use of insert into books. So instead of using insert into books command twice, we can specify the entries within one command itself. So over here, we can delete insert into books, and we will use comma after the first entry. And then we will end our command after the second entry. So if we are having multiple entries, we can separate those entries using comma, and then we can add those entries inside the table books. Let's just say we want to add one more entry. So we will make use of comma. We will make use of the brackets, and then we will specify the book that we want to enter. So let's say you got the author is J.K. Rowling, and then the language is British. Let's try to run this. So now we can see that every entry that we have mentioned, it is inserted in the table books.